What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hands Off My Hobo Rocket. Today, we're going to be looking at the NHL expansion, and we see that the NHL has already expanded to Las Vegas. I think that's a wonderful move. Brings hockey back out to the desert. We have Arizona out there, but now we're also going to get Vegas. But now we have 31 teams in the NHL. That seems kind of like an odd number, you know. They're kind of in between the NFL and MLB and NBA. So let's try to kind of put another team on the map for the NHL. They need some more popularity. Let's be honest. So let's kind of look at where they can expand. And they have two countries to expand to. They got Canada and the United States. That's something really nice that the NFL might not really have. Well, maybe with Mexico. The MLB, they only got Toronto, so if they want to expand, they're probably going to expand in the United States. And the NBA, I don't think they're looking to expand anywhere. They got a really good fan base everywhere. I think they're looking maybe to expand in the United States, if at all. But the NHL, they are really lacking in popularity. They're falling behind. Arguably, the MLB is more popular than the NHL. Which, the NHL used to be really popular the 90s, 80s, back when the Olympics on Lake Placid, when Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux were playing. But the NHL now needs to kind of expand to more high-density areas. Their most recent expansion is to Las Vegas, who initially it seemed kind of like a bad idea. But then that Vegas team pulled the community together after the tragedy in Vegas with the Vegas shooting and really made that town a hockey town. And the Raiders are coming there also, so they're only going to gain more popularity, those Golden Knights. So we got to look at first the NHL expansion from when it came from 6 teams to now 31. So initially, we had 6 teams. We had the original 6. We had the Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, and Toronto Maple Leafs. Those were the original 6 back in 1942. Yep, that's right. Right kind of during World War II. The first round of expansion came with the next 6, 1967. This is the largest expansion in professional sports history. We got the addition of the California Seals, which got later renamed to the Oakland Seals and the California Golden Seals, the Los Angeles Kings, Minnesota North Stars, Philadelphia Flyers, my Pittsburgh Penguins, and the St. Louis Blues. NHL in 1967 went from 6 to 12 teams. And then, 3 years later, the NHL expands to 14 teams by adding the Buffalo Sabres and the Vancouver Canucks. So that was kind of a much smaller one. And 2 years later again, the New York metropolitan area gets another NHL team, the New York Islanders, which were based out of Long Island in Uniondale, New York then. And then also the Atlanta Flames joined in 72. But then they moved to Calgary in 1980. That's a big move. In 1974, the NHL expands to the Washington Capitals and the Kansas City Scouts. Kansas City, remember that city. And the Scouts only played 2 seasons there in KC. Then they moved to Denver and got renamed to the Colorado Rockies. And then that franchise moved in 82 to become the New Jersey Devils. 78. After 2 years after the Golden Seals moved to Cleveland, they got renamed to the Cleveland Barons. And then the Cleveland Barons and the Minnesota North Stars merged, and that reduced the teams from 18 to 17. And then in 1993, those North Stars moved to Dallas and were named the Dallas Stars, the current franchise there. 79. The NHL actually takes 4 teams from the World Hockey Association. They take away the Edmonton Oilers, Hartford Whalers, Quebec Nordiques, and the Winnipeg Jets. That brings 21 teams to the NHL. The Nordiques moved to Denver, and they become the Colorado Avalanche in 95. The Jets moved to Phoenix in 96 and become the Phoenix, well, now known as Arizona Coyotes. And the Whalers relocated in 97 and became the Carolina Hurricanes, based in Raleigh. And then 91, the new era of the NHL begins with the addition of the San Jose Sharks, which brings up to 22. In 92, the NHL expands again to the Ottawa Senators and Tampa Bay Lightning. So now the Lightning are the first NHL team to play in Florida. And the original Ottawa Senators, played in the NHL from 1917 to 34, before the NHL really started, but still there was hockey around. 93, league adds 25 and 26, which would be the Florida Panthers, based in Miami, and the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. 98, the Predators join, now having 27 teams. 99, 19 years after the Flames leave, the NHL returns back to Atlanta with the Atlanta Thrashers. However, they didn't do so well, even though they had some amazing players, like Marian Hossa and Ilya Kovalchuk. The franchise moves to Winnipeg and becomes the second iteration of the Winnipeg Jets. 2000, the Columbus Blue Jackets and Minnesota Wild are added, and that is the return of Minnesota hockey, where it should be. And Columbus brings hockey back to Ohio. And in 2016, obviously, we get the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So that's 31 teams. Now, the NHL is open to expanding to a few more cities, potentially in Canada. First, let's go over in Canada. We got Quebec City, bringing back those Quebec Nordiques. Also, Hamilton. So, Hamilton's a pretty small little city in Canada. It's in Ontario, and it's really close to kind of where I believe Buffalo, New York, where Buffalo is, a bit to the north of that. And originally, Hamilton, the mayor there, Jack McDonald, attempted to lure the Colorado Rockies, which became the Colorado Rockies, to Hamilton in 1980. However, his effort ended when he lost his re-election in 1980. In 1990 again, Hamilton was another option, but it lost out to Ottawa and Tampa Bay. That kind of makes sense. Hamilton had negotiated a $50 million fee then, which was has a little less than what it should have been. And then, when the future of the Phoenix Coyotes, now Arizona Coyotes, was up in the air in 08-09, Hamilton once again tried to get in there, but they were denied. So, and then another is the Greater Toronto area. Right now we have the Toronto Maple Leafs and their AHL or minor league affiliate, the Toronto Marlies. But just like how New York has two teams, Toronto wants another team. Doesn't make any sense, as the media there is really stringent on hockey players, and a lot of players don't like playing at Toronto. Phil Kessel's one of them. So they're another option. I don't think that's the best option, honestly, because the Maple Leafs have too big of a fan base there, and you add another Toronto team, you're splitting that city in half, and it's going to hurt both teams. The new team will flounder, and the Toronto Maple Leafs will just lose that die-hard fan base that they have, which really, is a beautiful thing in hockey, to have that die-hard fan base. A lot of Toronto players that used to play there, like Dion Phaneuf, loved it. Oh, actually, Phaneuf plays there right now, and he loves it. So it doesn't make any sense to expand to Toronto again. But then you have Saskatoon. Saskatchewan. Oh boy, am I a fan of having hockey in Saskatoon. Saskatoon is kind of in the middle of Canada, kind of near where Quebec is, but just a bit to the, I guess, northeast, southwest of Quebec, I believe. And they've always been itching to have a hockey team. Once again, when the Coyotes were up in the air, even when the Thrashers were up in the air, Saskatoon wanted a team. They wanted a team bad. But, however, they're kind of small. They're a small market team. And if you look at the history of small market teams, Hartford, I wouldn't say Arizona. They're kind of a medium market team. It's just they live in an area. They're in an area which really doesn't have a big hockey presence yet. But originally Hartford is the prime example of a small market team. Quebec also a small market team. They haven't done that well. There needs to be a bigger fan base necessary. The Hartford Whalers were kind of like your old-timey elite owners, but not elite team. So their fan base didn't really travel with them as much. Unlike how you see, for example, a large market team like the Rangers, the Kings, the Edmonton Oilers. They're a large market team, so their fans travel with them per se. And even we can make this comparison in the NFL with the Steelers, the Patriots, other teams like the Cowboys. The fans travel with the team. In the NHL, a lot of fans sometimes travel with the team, even though it's a much harder schedule to travel with. But Hartford didn't have that, and Saskatoon probably won't have that just because they have such a small local fan base. So that really shores up Canada and what are the possible options. I only see one of those really happening, which would be Quebec, because a lot of current NHL fans, like myself, want the Quebec Nordiques back, because the Nordiques, they were a historic team. They were a team that it just feels right to have hockey back in Quebec. It just feels right. But then you have the United States, and this is where it gets crazy, because there are some cities that just need another sports team. Just need it. So we had Las Vegas. Las Vegas is getting 2 sports teams in a matter of 3 years. They got hockey. They're getting also football. They have, I believe, a minor league baseball team there. The MLB might want to expand there also. That's just an option for them. But we get some other cities, and one city I'm actually really looking forward to because it makes division realignment much better is Seattle. Now, Seattle has a long history. You got the Seattle Metropolitans in 1915. The Metropolitans were the first American team to win the Stanley Cup in 1917. And then you also had the Seattle Totems, which played in the WHL from 1944 till when the WHL dissociated in 1975. The Seattle Thunderbirds, they're part of, I believe, the Canadian Major Juniors Hockey League, even though they're no longer not in Canada. But then you get Seattle losing a few teams. So basketball-wise, it was terrible. Seattle lost the Seattle Supersonics. Now Seattle only has the Marlins and the Seahawks. Seattle is a huge fan base, and they're right across the border from Vancouver. This could be a rivalry for the ages. The Seattle versus Vancouver. And plus, to the south, you'll get Anaheim, Los Angeles, I believe San Jose as well. You'll get tons of teams. That West Coast will be hockey filled. And then you can realign the divisions so much simpler. And so this is a realignment I had in my head for a while. If you add Seattle to the NHL, well, you got 32 teams now. So, divisions can now be equal instead of having the West more lopsided than the East. Plus, you can go back to old division names, because no one wants to be called, I played in the Metropolitan Division. No, Smythe, Patrick, bring back those old divisions back when Maryland Lemieux played. But either way, if we go, here's the Pacific Division. You'd get Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle, San Jose, Los Angeles, Anaheim, and Las Vegas. You get eight states, I believe, and two or three Canadian provinces in it. That would be an amazing, amazing division. You don't remove any rivalries. You only build a rivalry between Seattle and Vancouver, and maybe even Seattle and San Jose or Seattle and Calgary. And Las Vegas is going to build a rivalry with Los Angeles. Las Vegas will probably also build a rivalry with San Jose. So expanding to the west makes sense. And then if we continue, I guess this would be, Central Division. This is kind of a bit more spread out, but I'm thinking Winnipeg, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Dallas, Colorado, and Arizona. Now, traveling here is going to be tough, but think about it. Move Detroit back to the west. If you move Detroit back to the west, you get Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago, and Colorado. I believe everyone misses the good old Colorado-Detroit rivalry when you get Chris Osgood dropping the gloves, the goalies coming out and fighting, Osgood versus Waugh back in, I think, 99. Everyone wants that back. And with Colorado starting to turn it up just a bit and getting good again with their consecutive tanking and drafting well, oh man, this is going to be good. And plus, you get Winnipeg back in a division that actually makes sense for them. Arizona, Dallas, they're going to have a hard time traveling. But think Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit. You got the triangle there. Nice little triangle, but a heated rivalry. You got a train ride from Detroit to Chicago and a train ride from Chicago to St. Louis. You got 3 rivalry right there that are going to be always fun to watch. So many fights, so many good games. Just think about, in the conference finals, you can get Chicago and Detroit again, or Detroit and Colorado, or St. Louis and Detroit. It'd be amazing. And with Minnesota getting good, this division is going to be extremely competitive. But Arizona kind of gets hung out to dry because they're a fledgling team. They're not as good as the others there, but they have Dallas to play with, and this is going to force Arizona to make good moves. Arizona already made a good move getting Rick Tocchet as their head coach. Great move. They got Clayton Keller, Max Domi. Now they just need to find a goalie, and they could actually be competitive in that division and maybe even in the conference and in the league. They have a chance of once again getting back into the playoffs, something they didn't do since Shane Doan was young. That's a long time. But now that has 19 states, and I think 2, maybe 3, probably 3 Canadian provinces, and getting Winnipeg back in the Central just makes sense. Now we get the Northeast. I have no idea what I'd call this division, but this division is going to be tight packed. Traveling is going to be easy. But what you get is Toronto, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, Boston, both New York teams, and the Devils. And wow. All right, see, first you take the Rangers out of the Metro because the Metro is just way too good. The Metropolitan Division right now is just way too good. It's unfair. It's like, the NL Central in baseball. You got the Cubs Pirates, and the Cardinals. That's not fair. Now, you put Toronto, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal. Well, Toronto, Ottawa, going to be great. Toronto, Montreal, going to be great. Toronto, Boston? You're kidding me, right? That's going to be amazing. Get original 6 teams back at it. Plus, you obviously get the New York battle. You get Jersey fighting with New York, and then Boston there as well. Now, Buffalo is going to become a major rivalry for Boston, Toronto, and probably Ottawa. So that's going to be a really, really, really good idea. So you include, I think, 7 Canadian provinces and 8 states. You include the American Northeast, New England area, and you get practically the whole eastern side of Canada. Boom. Immediately you're growing a fan base in the eastern Canada near Nova Scotia and all that. That's huge because a lot of good players have come from Nova Scotia. Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon. You're going to grow players and fans from that area. Now, we already know that's going to be a huge hockey market, but it's going to get even bigger. And finally, we get, the Metropolitan Division. You get Pittsburgh, Columbus, Nashville, Carolina, Philadelphia, Washington, Tampa Bay, and Florida. So, Nashville, Pittsburgh. That looks like a rivalry. That looks like it's going to be a great rivalry after the Stanley Cup Finals. Carolina doesn't like playing Washington. Those two don't like each other. Pittsburgh doesn't like Washington. Columbus doesn't like Washington. Philadelphia doesn't like Washington. Tampa doesn't like Washington. Florida doesn't like Washington. No one likes Washington. So put them all in the same division, and you'll get a great rivalry. Plus, you're going to start growing hockey in the South and the American Midwest, with Nashville now having easier travel to Tampa Bay, Florida, Columbus. The drive from Nashville to Columbus is like 4 hours. That's fine. You give those players rest. Nashville almost always has one of the longest traveling schedules just because of their placement. So put them in a division that makes sense. And then you got to keep together Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Washington. Now, you take out the Rangers. Okay, that kind of sucks. But at least you still get Philadelphia, Washington, and you bring in the Predators. Whenever the Pens play the Preds, I think it's a better game than when the Pens play the Rangers, because the Penguins have had the Rangers number now for a few seasons, and before it was the Rangers dominating the Pens, and then Pens dominating Rangers, and you get the cycle. But now you don't get the cycle with Pittsburgh and Nashville. Just watch the Stanley Cup. That Stanley Cup was back and forth, and that was a wonderful Stanley Cup. It really brought Smashville back. It got hockey back in the South, and that's where you need to expand. So that is just only American states, 13 American states, no Canadian teams, and I'm fine with that. And that's if you expand to Seattle, which I'm all on board for, because Seattle needs another team. And Russell Wilson has even said in multiple interviews, hey, let's bring hockey to this city. The football players there want it. I think the city wants it. The city wants another team to cheer for because, their baseball team just isn't lifting up the par. They're kind of, bottom of the league now, not playing well. And then, the Seahawks, they just didn't play well this year. This year was not good for them. Last year, that was a disappointment. The Seahawks are just they're regressing a bit. So I think they need a new life. The city needs a new life, and I think hockey can do that. But then another city makes a huge, huge argument. I really haven't thought much about this one, but actually it could be great since the Astros just won the World Series. Houston. So Houston has a football, has a basketball, and has a baseball team. All those teams are now doing amazingly good. You got Deshaun Watson and the Texans. You got Jose Altuve, Verlander, Correa, Springer with the Astros. Then you got James Harden, CP3, and maybe even a banana boat reunion. You bring in LeBron and Melo to Houston. Man, you could have super teams there. Why not add another team? You'll have so much popularity there. You'll have so many new fans. It makes sense to give Houston a hockey team. Now, Houston, out of all the teams of all the cities I've listed, has the largest city, metro population there. But in Houston, they haven't had much hockey experience. They had the Houston Skippers in 1946. Then they had the Houston Apollos and Houston Aeros in the WHA, and then Houston Aeros in the AHL. And then, the Aeros were successful they won the AVCO World Trophy from 72 to 78 twice. So they've had some minor hockey experience, but nothing big. And plus, if you add Houston, you can probably put them in the same division with Dallas. And think about that. Get a Dallas-Houston rivalry, and you have the same divisions I had listed earlier, but take Seattle out, move Arizona to the Pacific, and put Houston in the Central to keep the balance, and boom. You got Houston-Dallas rivalry, Houston, probably St. Louis rivalry. You got a few good rivalries there. And so I believe there was an attempt to purchase the Edmonton Oilers in '98 and move them to Houston by Les Alexander. So local ownership then kind of kept the Oilers there, and I'm really a fan of not moving the Oilers. They got Connor McDubstep, so I think that's going to work. And the final United States city that has a realistic chance is Kansas City. Kansas City almost got the Penguins in 2007, but financial troubles, in quotes, really just people wanted the Penguins to stay because they're going to get Sidney Crosby. Let's be real. As a Pens fan, I truly believe that Kansas City just got snubbed by the NHL. So maybe they want another team. But I don't see it happening just because they're too small. Even though, yes, you have the Kansas City Chiefs there in Arrowhead and the crazy fan base. I don't think so. Now, another city could be Hartford, bringing back the Hartford Whalers, but it seems like that's more of an option if you relocate, since it looks like the Islanders have actually been thinking about relocation. And that could be big, relocating the Islanders, taking a team out of New York. I'm not against it. I'm perfectly neutral against having the the Hartford Oilers, Whalers, my bad, Hartford Whalers come back. I'd like to hear the other goal theme again and see those nice whaling uniforms. But I don't think that's going to happen just because if the Islanders make the playoffs this year, they solidified their place in New York finally, even though they have a terrible rink, terrible ownership, and terrible management with their players. They also solidified their captain John Tavares and keeping them there for the next few seasons. That being said, that just means they need to make the playoffs. They need to get hot right now. They need Tavares to start playing well. They need Joshua Ho-Sang to finally become their player they needed. They need Calvin DeHaan to step up just a bit, and they need a new goaltender. Yaroslav Halak is not the Halak of before when he played with the Canadiens and he somehow miraculously beat the Penguins. That's not the Halak that is now. And there are some other rumors of teams moving, I believe. Obviously, the Coyotes, maybe the Stars. But realistically, the Stars are saying the Coyotes, however, could move. They could move, I don't really know where. Maybe bring back another California team just to kind of take hockey out of the desert. I don't think that's a good idea since, arguably your number one best young player in Austin Matthews is from the desert. He's from Phoenix. So I don't see a way to move hockey out of the desert. It'd be kind of a bad idea, in my opinion. But yeah, so let me know if you guys have any thoughts on this. The NHL expansion, there should be another expansion draft, I think, within the next 5 years. So that should be something to look out for all you hockey fans. And if you guys are looking into getting into hockey, definitely start looking out for a few hot teams right now. I'd say, the Kings, the Oilers, hopefully, the Penguins, the Blue Jackets. Hate saying it, but the Blue Jackets definitely. The Flyers a little bit. Obviously, if you want to hop on a bandwagon, the Capitals are always there. But the Capitals will never make it past the second round. Let's be real. In the Ovechkin era, it just won't happen. But yeah, if you have any thoughts, just tweet at me at _SVish. But until next time, thank you all for listening. I hope you have a good rest of your day whenever you listen to this. Peace.